Before we begin this evening, if you don't mind just a moment of indulgence, I would love for us all to have a moment of silence. The city of Akron and the community lost a pastor yesterday to an accident, and his name is Pastor Elliott, and he was at Greater Bethel Baptist Church in Akron, and if you don't mind, I'd like to have a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. All right. On a much lighter note, and looking to the wonders of our future, we have Naya Chironomy here from Case Elementary School. Naya Chironomy is a 5th grader at Case Elementary School. After previously attending Piper, this is her first year at Case. Naya's teacher, Mrs. Salinas, I forgot to ask you to pronounce that, I'm sorry, says that she is a responsible student with a positive attitude. She takes an active role in her learning, is dependable, and a model student. Mrs. Maxwell, her English language arts teacher, shares that Naya is dedicated to her education and prepared each day. She is kind and active in community service. Principal Sharon Hill-Jones says she is pleased that Naya is part of the Case family, calling her an outstanding student leader and an extraordinary individual. Naya is currently on the honor roll and has improved her grades with each grading period. When asked how she improved her math grade to an A, Naya shared that she does not play around. She pays attention and studies. As student council ambassador, Naya is caring, open-minded, and reflective about the importance of her actions. She's assisted in making baskets of food for needy families during Thanksgiving, and last fall she raked leaves for a neighbor of Case School. And currently she is helping do summer cleanup with Councilwoman Marilyn Keith. Naya is also a kindergarten lunchroom monitor, a Case door greeter for school events, and a student announcer. I don't know how you have time for these great grades. Naya is working with Mrs. Bruce, Dean of Students, to encourage students to donate pennies for children who have leukemia. Naya states, "I like student council because I like helping the kids and the community." Welcome, Naya.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's Mr. Williams. He's the one with the sticker. Come right here, Steve. Can you introduce the people who came with you today?
My mom came with me today, and she's over there with the glasses. And my principal, Miss Jones, came with me today.
Thank you so much. One thing we forgot to talk about, if you want to stay and watch the ambassadors get recognized, you may, but if you guys have things to do, you're more than welcome to go. All right? All right. Thank you so much for coming. I also promised you this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for community and school reflections. Who would like to start?
Well, I'll go on, and first had the privilege going to the Urban League luncheon, scholarship luncheon, where there were a number of board members there, and several of our students from Project Grad were given scholarships, very healthy scholarships. So we appreciate their stewardship and receiving those scholarships at that luncheon, which was well attended. And not only the Project Grad students, but I believe there were other APS students as well that received scholarships. Also attended the Summit County Children's Service Board's annual breakfast, where they honored and recognized families that have adopted children, as well as recognizing the Akron Police Department and an award that was given in the name of Detective Duvall, yeah, thank you so very much, who worked with particularly our difficult situations in the police department over a long period of time. And then I also attended the OSBA Black Caucus. And the reason why I want to place emphasis on that is because at that particular meeting there was a concern that maybe there wasn't a need for the Black Caucus, and several of us, including Brother Hoss, was a member of the Black Caucus, but our present members felt that there was a need, not just simply to be couched in urban districts, but there is a need to recognize that there's a large percentage of our students that are minority students, and they need to have a voice and a representation. And it was also emphasized that we need to be proactive, and that's where I really want to emphasize that, because Veronica Sims and I are on the Legislative and Social Concerns Committee, and she's already moved forward by putting out an invitation to Senator Turner to be our speaker for the annual dinner at the Capitol Conference, and Senator Turner has agreed to do that. We have also, through her help, initiated some talking points that we're initiating here in Akron that we feel would be helpful throughout the state. There are a couple of issues that I personally want us to look at, which is dealing with Common Core, pros and cons, some other issues that affect us directly, particularly our African American minority students and urban areas, how we can address that. So we're going to work real hard trying to be very, very proactive. So instead of just disbanding, our emphasis now is being more proactive, getting our word out. Again, with the background of Sister Sims, how can we tie in the Black Caucus with the legislative Black Caucus that meet on a regular basis, and many of us get that information for that. So that's even more, being more proactive, and I was mentioning that because we have right here at the table people in Akron who are going to be very, very supportive, along with Bruce Alexander, who deals with Q, and to tie in all of those wonderful things so that we can get as much positive information to our students. I want to thank Sister Sims for, because of her background and because of things she's done in the past, have really, I think, helped us see a different light and vision as to what we need to be doing in the Black Caucus. So I appreciate, the work she's doing in that direction. And then on Friday, got a chance to go to Cedar Point. The LeBron James family was recognizing the Rougarou, the inaugural rider on Friday evening. We got a chance to stand there, look at that, and share where many of our students were some of the first riders. I didn't ride. Didn't want to ride. So my wife and I looked at the riders and prayed for them. We were given a little medallion. I promised medallion from the LeBron James Family Foundation, an inaugural riders medallion. But our superintendent did ride. Amen.
Your prayers were answered.
Right. And as a young lady on the Bill Cosby show would always say, and I'm still alive. So we're just grateful to have that opportunity to share in those activities in the life of our district.
I'm going to talk quickly and keep my head down because they told me I wasn't supposed to be long-winded. Not you, Jason.
I was going to say, what are you doing? I haven't said a word.
So quickly, just want to acknowledge the departure of our mayor, his announcement, and just to say thank you for all that he's done for our city, and that we appreciate all that he's done for our city, but I'm sure somebody else is going to say something else. Again, want to acknowledge our loss, our tremendous loss to this community, and Pastor Milford Elliott, who's been a friend to kids and certainly a friend to us and open to working with us to make sure he can do all that he can to reach young folks in their community to make their lives better the way we can do through the educational vein. Attended the OSBA's Leadership Institute May 1st and 2nd, followed by the OSBA Black Caucus. And if you're not a member, I encourage you to join us. I won't reiterate, I'll just echo the sentiments of Reverend Walker. Attended the Gas Spring event, Guardians Against Sexual Predators, with Elizabeth England over at Traderos. Very nice event. Learned a lot more than I guess I knew less than I really thought I knew. So it was I'm glad I was able to go. Learned a lot more. On Sunday, for those who doesn't know, it was Mother's Day, and I had the privilege to attend a Mother's Daughters tea with a group called EVE, that stands for Education, Value, and Esteem. And just to point out, our teachers and our counselors, they work really every day, around the clock, to do enrichment programming to help make our young girls better. They specifically target young girls. One of the leaders is in the room with us today, Yvonne Culver, and her co-facilitator, Courtney Jones-Hunter, who is a counselor at East High School, and the side coordinator is Vicki Shaw, who's a former counselor at East High School, now retired. What a wonderful program. I know you guys probably don't know that Ms. Yvonne Culver is a poet, wrote a beautiful poem. It was an exchange between my mom and a daughter, just talking about I know things are kind of like stressful sometimes. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. If I had it here, I read it and disregard everything they tell me to do about shutting up. Yeah, because it was that beautiful. And I plan to do that because I cried, and that, well, it doesn't take a lot, but right. It was very beautiful, and it was really nice to be in a room with intergenerational women, grandmothers with daughters, with great grandma, with mom, and I guess you're wondering which one I am. I'm a mom. So it was a wonderful event. I just want to say hats off for you, the work that you all do to help our young ladies. Also, I was there at the Urban League Scholarship lunch, but last week I missed the opportunity to sing the praises of our president, Lisa Mansfield. She was the newly appointed managing director of the Weather Vane Theater, and that is huge, and I wish if you guys could help me congratulate her and say thank you. She makes us love the arts. Now, we don't get out as much as she does. I mean, if we're stopping by the corner store, she wants to know if they have music there. And so, it's just her love for music and her understanding of how music impacts our young folks and how it really helps them in their formative years to get over things, to join in, to be a part of things that really help with their self-esteem. And the folks that she works with are really, really gifted. So just want to say congratulations. I could think they couldn't have made a better choice. And that was it in 5 seconds. Or so.
I'll just, I also attended the scholarship luncheon and just echo the sentiments of Reverend Walker. The kids were amazing, and the number of full-ride scholarships and book scholarships, was outstanding, and a lot of, including a lot of our students participating. We also, several of us attended the Akron Early College High School graduation. Veronica Sims was there, Tim Miller, Lisa Mansfield, myself. There were several of us there anyway. We were, as we are every year, I think, with that program, just impressed at the number of students. 89% of them earning not only their high school diploma, but 60 or more credit hours, and more than 30 of those students graduating that following Sunday with their associate's degree. So hats off to all of them. I know it's graduation season and we have a lot of students to congratulate and be thankful and grateful for their contributions and look forward to their success. But this one always just strikes me because these students work extremely hard to get those extra 60 college credits or those associate's degrees. So just kudos to them and to Marilyn Bennett for this being her final year there.
So this is her retirement remix? Or is this the first one?
This is her retirement, her second retirement.
Remix, the remix.
The remix, number 2.
Couple things I did in addition to some other things that were mentioned here. I did get to go to the Akron Art Museum for the annual art and math integration art display. One of my favorite things because you see all the different interpretations of the same subject from different kids in the same school and same classroom. Pretty cool. And I also enjoy going through the art museum at that same time. And the other thing that was a lot of fun that I did was myself, Reverend Walker, and our superintendent got to throw out the inaugural ball at the high school special education bowling tournament. I threw a 9, couldn't pick up the spare, but so I won't be going on the Pro Bowlers tour very soon. But it was a lot of fun. I've done that in the past as well, and that's sort of cool. Those kids are just having a blast at that annual bowling tournament.
I'm last. I went to a couple events, and one, it was first one is I went to PASS School, PASS School, and PASS stands for Positive Academic Support System. Karen Lydell Anderson is the director, Terry Porter is the special ed coordinator, and Denise Salmon is the lead teacher. And I had the privilege of going there with our deputy superintendent, Dr. McWilliams, and along with Don Good and Mrs. Alexander to observe what goes on in the school. And it was very, very nice going into the school, seeing the kids there, seeing what they do and interact with them. It's a short-term / long-term program for intense program for therapeutic mental health kids in case management. And these kids have some struggles, but to see them at that school and go through the things that they go through mentally and have some shortcomings, it was really, really nice. In particularly one young man, and this young man, his name is Jason Andrews. He's an 11th grader, and he's going to receive an award. He's going to be recognized for Horn Outstanding Student Achievement Award for Medina, Portage, and Summit counties. He's going to be recognized for his success in auto tech at Ellet High School. He works at Erie Island as a custodian helper there, and he does a very good job over PASS. His teacher over there at the auto tech school says that Jason takes on the role of almost like a shop manager. And here's a kid who may have had some anxiety problem, but is doing really well in this school. And if it wasn't for those individuals who are over there working with those kids and the teachers, then it wouldn't be they wouldn't be a success. I also found out that Don Good and Mrs. Alexander are mentors for some of those kids over there in the schools, and Mr. Good does a lot of good things. And one of the things he's doing is he's taking on a kid who wants to become a Marine. And here's a kid who couldn't get through regular school setting, but is in this setting and is doing a good job, but he wants to be a Marine. And Mr. Good has been a Marine himself, ex-Marine, and he has taken on the charge with this individual. Also, the teachers over there were excellent, outstanding teachers over there. Mike Harkness, which is the elementary teacher, Laura Everett, which is the middle school teacher, and Beth Dotson, who's the high school teacher. And so, again, Karen Lydell Anderson and her staff, they do a great job over there, and so I want to applaud them. I mean, I really learned some things myself, and I was watching a TV show the other night, and what this young man was telling us in the history class, I actually saw it. I said, well, that's what the kid told me, and I learned in the class the other day. So I went back to school. He was teaching me, so it was really nice to see that that program there. Second of all, I was allowed to go and had the privilege to go to Firestone High School for their National Honor Society student ceremony. It was really nice. Mrs. Hall over there, Mrs. White does an outstanding job with those students. The president, Shannon Callahan, she is an outstanding student, does very well. And just to see the students run that program, that ceremony, without the adults was really amazing to me. I mean, they were on beat step by step, and it was very, very exciting. And I had the privilege of speaking to them, and the things that I spoke about was working hard work, perseverance, because they're going to have hurdles in their lives, and the other thing was being able to reach back and help someone else, so never give up. So that was very exciting there to be at Firestone. And the two last things, Don Good has done some very good things for Akron Public School. I know we read in the paper and we see things that go on, but the situation that happened at Jennings Middle School with the staff, he did a very good job. He was the first one there. He got involved and took care of everything at that point. So I think he needs to be commended. As always, Don does a good job. And the last thing I had is I turn on the TV every morning. I look at the news, and the other day I turned on and there was some Akron Public School students, and they were singing and going, and I was enjoying it myself. Kind of helped me wake up because I'm not a morning person, but it was a Firestone High School Jazz Ensemble, and they sound really, really good, really good. So I was pleased to see those kids performing well on Fox 8 News that morning. That's all I have, Madam President.
You're a member of that ensemble.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay. You guys did a very, very good job. So I took my time and I was late for work, but that's okay. I still listened to you guys sing, and I said, I got to say something about that. So good job.
Here's a mic, come prove it.
She could. Bring it. Very good. All right, thank you all. We have a busy couple weeks coming up, especially the next two, and then we head into graduation, so hang on to your hats, everyone, as we get through these last few weeks of school. We do have a request to address the board today. Mr. Tarl and Mr. Milkovich, are you both going to speak, or are you going to speak together? What is the plan?
We'll do it separate, if you don't mind.
Okay, so you each get 3 minutes. We have Mr. Tarl listed first on the agenda, if that's okay to go that way.
Age before beauty in this case. Thank you.
It's 3 minutes. If you need to mention any personnel by name, then we need to go into executive session. And Mr. Pendleton will keep the time. When we hit 1 minute, I'll try to give you a heads up.
You hear me okay?
Those are mostly just to pick it up for the
Okay,
TV,
perfect. Okay, so thank you all for letting me speak, and thank you to everybody that lets me speak. The average inner city student will lose 3 months of reading comprehension this and every summer. This is not true of our suburban peers, who will gain a month. That 4-month difference, when compounded over time, builds an achievement gap. 65 to 80% of that achievement gap comes directly from summer learning loss. When the achievement gap tells us that the average Akron inner city 4th grader will read on the 2nd grade level. When that happens, he or she will be 10 times more likely to drop out of school, 4 times more likely to be chronically unemployed, and if they do get a job, they will earn 1/4 as much money on average as the college graduate. In addition, 1 out of 10 of those children will be in jail any day of the year for the rest of their lives. That's the bad news. The good news is that we know how to stop this. All over America, we are stopping this. And it starts with summer learning. Why? Because 65 to 80% of this achievement gap is caused from what's happening in this summer, which is the children aren't reading in the inner city. So what Zach and I have done is to start a 5-week program that is intensive on reading. It was 20 hours a week for 5 weeks. And we broke every rule in the book. Our classrooms were filled with rapping and rhyming and cheering and chanting and rhythm and movement. Anything we could do to keep them active, engaged, joyful, and learning. And they did learn. We used the Dibbles diagnostic system to pre-test and post-test these children for that 5-week period.
and our children on average gained 415%. 415%, which equates to a 3-month gain as opposed to a 3-month loss. Now this 6-month difference essentially enabled them to double their annual reading comprehension. What this would imply is that if we did this for every child in Akron in kindergarten, by 4th grade, we wouldn't have an achievement gap in Akron, Ohio. So thank you. So we've come here to ask for your help to help more of our children. We have a campus on the west side out of Mount Olive Baptist Church. We will be able to serve 100 students this year, but that's all on the west side. So we have asked your administration, and now you, may we have some classroom space so we may bring this thing to the east. We need 4 to 5 classrooms. The administration told us this would normally cost about $15,000. They said for us they would bring that down to $5,000 since we're helping Akron students. Unfortunately, that's our entire budget. We need to ask you to do a little bit more. Let us use this space, especially considering that our parents paid for these CLCs as well. Also, if you can't afford us one of these fancy new buildings, we'll take any one of the old buildings standings, Goodyear, Goodrich, Reedinger. Any one of these will be fine. We don't need air conditioning nor a fancy building. We just need some space for when it rains. Thank you very much for listening.
Good evening. Madam President, members of the board, I want to thank you for letting me and allowing me to speak tonight. I want to let you know why this is so important and personal to me, this reading, especially in the city of Akron. Now, I came to this country with my family from a communist country, the former Yugoslavia, back in 1967. When I came here, there was no such program to teach somebody like me English, to read, mathematics. So when I got the opportunity to help these kids, especially where I grew up over in inner city Akron, it's so important. Ernie is right. We need another location. It is a hardship for our families even to come to Mount Olive. This one young lady, she brought her son on a bus. I can't tell you how long that took and what great sacrifice that lady made. Now, my mom and dad made a sacrifice for my brother and I to come across the ocean for a better life. And if these children do not read by the 3rd grade, I'm here asking, begging, let's take the politics out of this. It's about the children. Please help us, help you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. It's the board's policy that we don't address you at the meeting. We'll get back to you and we'll see what we can figure out, but thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for listening.
Sure. All right, now it's time for communications and recognitions, and the superintendent has some very special guests in the audience, and I'll turn that over to you.
Madam President and board members, every year we have 2 students from each of our high schools participate in the superintendent's student seminar, which predates me as superintendent. I decided to continue the program. And what we do with the students is meet with them once a month during the school year. And Carla Sibley has engaged some of our community partners to have them see some other organizations in the community, learn more about Akron. And then, of course, when I meet with them, I get all the complaints about, you know, what's not good at lunch, or we should have more snow days and things like that. So tonight is our culminating event of getting their certificates. We also follow up with them to make sure, and you can hear Carla's voice now, have you applied to your colleges? Have you filled out your FAFSA? Have you done your scholarship application? So the first one, and I'm not sure if everyone is here, but Carlton Powell from North High School. I have Andrew Cantrell from North High School. And when you come up, just stand up and hold your certificates, because Mark Williamson is going to take your picture. Stephen McCall from Kenmore High School. Chloe Myers, Kenmore High School. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name because I always get it wrong, but Innocencia from Garfield High School. Mario Vargas from Garfield High School. No. And here's another one from Firestone. Andrew. No, yep, come on up. Andrew is probably one of our most challenging people because he always has good questions at the end. Michaela Wakeman from Firestone. And then Brandon Bickley from Ellett. Sarah Kisner from Ellett. Kelvin Lawrence from ECLC. Caitlin Smith from ECLC. Brittany Mosley from Buchtel CLC. And Courtney McNeil is our last student from Buchtel CLC as well. Now you all are going to have to all bunch together, and the tall people have to get in the back. Shorter people up front. Marco, get your picture.
Try to form two rows if you can. Some of you are taller than others. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. There's a really tall guy in the... Oh, sorry, David. That works, below on. Great, thank you.
Don't go anywhere
I
yet.
think you have a question.
Just a anyone who wants to answer, maybe 2 or 3 of you. And then when I was in 6th grade, I had a teacher who I got to hang out with. He helped me write a story about a little brown bear. I thought it was so important because I got to hang out with the teacher. So I guess my question would be, this is a huge deal to be a part of a team with a superintendent. So if you were to identify something that stood out for you that was really, that made this very significant for you, what would that be?
It would be the fact that he listened. Like, he would ask us every time we got together, like, what our concerns were, and he kept an open ear and tried to fill us in on, like, certain things of, like, if they had ideas for problems that they already knew existed, how they would inform us of, like, what a solution would be and what we thought of it. They'd actually listen.
The significance to me was how close we were to him. You know, there's 1,001 people from Akron Public Schools trying to get a hold of the superintendent. And there's 1,001 students that want to explore different things for Akron. You know, we got to explore like the different leadership programs. We had to explore the juvenile detention programs. We went to the job center. There was so many things that opened our eyes that many of the students didn't have the opportunity to see. So the significance for me was that we got to meet the superintendent, we got to build a relationship with him, but we also got to experience things that our schools don't highlight as an Akron.
Michaela and I are both members of Firestone High School's choir, and there's the sang choir, which is listen louder than you sing. And I think being able to come here and meet with Miss Sibley and David James, it was an absolute pleasure because it showed that the board listens louder than they sing. And not only that, but also going to get around, tour Akron, and see our community was wonderful.
Anybody else? Any other takers?
One thing that I specifically enjoyed was the different organizations that we were able to explore and learn about, because there are a lot of things going on in Akron that I didn't know about until we were introduced to them in this group. And it was really enriching for me to learn more about my city.
From us, you guys are amazing, just in the way you just were able to articulate what your experience was. And that's huge. It's a big, weighty responsibility, but to carry that back to your fellow classmates, to share with them the things that you've learned and what you've seen, because like you, they don't know. And so that's part of the story. So we look forward to big things from you all, you bright students. And I was glad. I'm going to say I was here. And when you become famous, let's say you knew me. Thank you. Brian, she can't tell who I
am. Can I just ask you, you all represent different schools. How do you all get along? Perfect. Did you get along? Perfect. And that's important. You got to listen to everybody. You got to feel for what each school represents and how those schools are working. Because you're an example of the world. A lot of things are going on in the world and in our cities. And if you can get along, you can help the rest of us get along. It starts with you. And you've done that. You've gotten to see some flavor, some different attitudes, some different concerns. And now in a few weeks, you're going to be thrust out into the greater society. And there's going to be even more concerns that come. So learn. Keep what you've learned here. So when you go out into the greater society, you can take what you've learned from each other to be able to help us solve some of the things that some of us haven't learned yet.
Right.
Okay?
And remember, you knew me.
Thank you.
Great job. Great job.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Excellent.
Moving. Mr. Black is going to give a presentation. Oh, if if you all don't want to stay for this part, you are more than welcome. I know how busy you must be this time of year, so thank you for coming. Thank your parents for bringing you.
Good job.
Well, sure, I like the church.
Buy a chair.
Chair.
Thank you.
All right, the good news is after this presentation, everybody's dismissed to go enjoy the rest of the week. I'm sorry. No. Good evening. We are here to give you guys a two-part presentation. One is an update on a story that is still being told because we haven't received our data back yet. But the other is on what's to come with the new graduation requirements. So as we kind of move out of the OGT and into the end of the course exams, we still have students that will have to meet the OGT requirements, but we have students who started in the new adventure of end of the course exams, PARC assessments, OSTs. They've carried several names this year, but now they're the OSTs. Okay? We always want to make sure that we're staying in line with our district focus. Of course, to be a #1 urban, you can't just talk about it. You got to make sure you're taking action and you're doing something about it. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we are creating programs that are going to be not only sustainable but seamless to the goal of making sure that all of our students have a rich, rigorous experience in the classroom as well as within the community. And what that leads to is preparing each child for success. How are we going to do that? By ensuring that all of our graduates are independent learners, critical thinkers, problem solvers, as well as caring, responsible, innovative citizens of the Akron community. We do that by looking in 3 focus areas. Rigorous teaching and learning will always be at the forefront, because within the classroom, we want the vehicle of learning to be moved by the rigorous things that our teachers are challenging our students to do so that they're stretched and they continue to grow within the walls of the classroom as well as within the community. We're continuing to work to make sure that our schools are safe learning centers by focusing on the learning conditions. We are building infrastructures to focus on extracurriculars because we know the more engaged our students are with extracurriculars outside of the curriculum that we're offering them, the more successful they can be and the less downtime they will have to explore trouble. Okay? Collaborative and engagement. So our collaboration and our engagement, we have many partners, and you'll see that throughout the PowerPoint, not only to help our students recover credit or to overcome the OGT woes, but also to explore college opportunities as well as career opportunities. And with that being said, we want to make sure that the results that we are getting are ensuring our students are 21st century ready. We're graduating students at a high rate, and they're meeting that mission requirement. And you know, if I could add one, because I know this is board approved and everybody works, Yvonne and I, we talk about this all the time. We don't want our students to go off to college, no matter where they fall, in the universal tier, the targeted tier, or if they were in the intensive tier when they was with us. We don't want them to go off to college looking at college as part 2 of high school. We want to make sure that they're seeing it as a smooth transition to new endeavors, and the things that they did in high school, they know they got to step it up an extra notch to compete and be not only in college, not only retain themselves, but get that bachelor's degree so they can come back and get back to the community. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to show you a chart of where we were last year with the results back of the OGT. We just took a spring OGT in March, and a lot of our seniors are anxiously awaiting their results to come back. They're set to come back on May 18th, but we know when the state says May 18th, sometimes that may be May 25th. But when they do come back, we will be ready to inform our students if they are ready to walk across the stage or not. There's a lot of story within the data, and I'll share some of that with you. So, as you can see, last year we averaged probably about 15 students across the district, not being prepared to pass the OGT or not passing the OGT by graduation. Okay, this year, if you look on the right-hand side, that's where we stand right now without the spring test results coming back. The other thing that we need to understand as we look at that data is we have a lot of students that come to us, this is their first year in Akron Public Schools. So they left the school district, let's say Kansas City, they came to us, and now we're working to try to get those students back. We don't know what happened in their district prior to coming to us, but we know that we're going to do everything to try to get them to achieve the goal of passing the OGT. We also, as you look at North, we have students that are new to the country. This is their first time in the country, and we're trying to get them to pass the OGT. And Yvonne has to remind me all the time, we also have students new to our state who may have took a test in Texas that doesn't come with them. They have to now take all 5 parts of the OGT and pass them within their senior year. We have students that come to us March, the first week of March, and we test in 2 weeks, and we have to get them tested. So we were not able to give them intervention or anything. But I will show you the things that we're doing to support the students, because we don't have time to make excuses. Like I said, if you're trying to be a #1 urban, you have to take action. And we've been taking action since the students who've been with us, all 4 years, took the test in their sophomore year. So the things that we're doing, we don't want you to think that this just happened. Okay, so I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to have Yvonne come up and go through the flow chart of how it works for a student from there. And if you look in your packet, the flow chart says OGT intervention flow chart. And then you'll see, it's not in the PowerPoint packet, it's an addition. Okay?
Just really quickly, Mr. Klein, on these numbers, is there any way to pull out those folks that you just articulated that came in, taking up state, and look at the data from just...
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. But we wanted to paint the picture of what we're dealing with, because that is our reality. But at the same time, yes, we do have the data broken down where, for instance, 13 students from North just came to the country in November. And they're in that data.
Okay.
13 of that 46.
So we could possibly see that problem.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you look at the flow chart, we just kind of go through all the 10th graders. The first time they can test is in spring of their 10th grade year. And then those students that pass all 5 tests that first time, they're finished. They don't have to worry about that anymore. They have met that requirement for graduation. For those who do not pass, the results for all students are mailed home that summer. They don't come out until late May, and generally they get mailed home with the report cards at the end of the year. The students that do not pass, when they return in the fall, they're looked at for intervention courses. If I did not pass math, if I'm having some struggle, there's some OGT intervention classes that I can add to my schedule that I can work on those results. Then they are tested in the fall. If they pass, once again, they're good to go. If they do not pass, we're going to have the students that did not go into an intervention again in the spring, and they're going to continue to work. And I think one of the things that happen is we kind of follow the pyramid example. there are universal interventions for any student who doesn't pass. And then as the pipeline narrows and those kids get closer and closer to their senior year, we start more targeted interventions. That junior year, you're looking at not only the students that didn't pass, but you're looking at why they didn't pass, and you're looking at what areas they have deficits in, and you're making sure you are targeting those specific areas and not just really doing the general overview anymore. Then if you have not passed by the end of your junior year, you're invited to participate in a free summer school where not only are we going to provide extended interventions, and basically that's all you're coming to summer school to do is work on that OGT, but we're also going to provide you with the opportunity to take that test immediately on completion of those interventions. So if I'm working on science, I'm going to take that science test in summer school, and I'm going to work on science all the way up until Thursday, because that science, well, I guess science is on Thursday, so I'm going to work on that. Those kids that took English and that need reading, that take that test on reading, they don't have to come back, or they're finished once they take that. But I'm going to keep working with that science person or that social studies person all the way up until the day they sit for that test. And then finally, if after doing the general classroom interventions, after doing the targeted interventions, after doing the summer interventions, that student has not passed, then we are looking at individual one-on-one with a teacher, with a tutor, that we are really going to not just work with you on skill deficits, but maybe we need to work with you on test anxiety. Maybe we need to work with you on just general test-taking strategies, because a lot of our students are not real good with how to take a test. And so we will continue to work on those until we get the job done.
The other piece to that is we do have some students that are within that data that will meet the alternative pathway, but we can't pull them out until they complete the application process. And we get the application together, we bring them to Mr. James, he makes sure that everything is in line, their attendance, their GPA, as well as their test score. So that you guys know they would have to score a 390 or higher and only need to pass one OGT. They would have to have 90% or higher attendance, 95% attendance, and then their GPA has to be 2.5 or higher with any area of the test that they didn't pass. So if I didn't pass the math OGT, all of my math classes throughout Akron Public Schools, my high school career, I have to average a 2.5 within that subject area, and then I will be able to qualify for the state's alternative pathway as long as the superintendent signs off on that. And we haven't pulled those students out yet because those applications, we normally wait for the data to come back before we generate them. Okay? And here's some other things that we try to do with our students who are having some struggles. The OGT coursework and testing supports consist of parent and student meetings. Those are one-on-one with counselors as well as group. After the 10th grade year, once the state mails the data home and students do not pass, okay, the parents are invited to come to the schools to learn more about the reports. Because remember, the state just mails it to the parents, okay? Thinking that the parents can read through and understand everything. So we have sessions so the parents can come in and go through the report so they understand the supports they need to give to their child. Staff members select 2 students from the 2 test lists. We generate a 2 test list. Howard's staff generates 2 test lists for us. Principals can run those lists any time of the year. It'll tell them the areas that the students need to focus on, and then the teachers can get those lists from the principals, and they can do some advisory with them during the school day around the areas where they're struggling. OGT only class for seniors. We do that because we do have some juniors that are in right now in the OGT, because again, we don't wait until their senior year. So as soon as we have some sophomores, we have some juniors, but we want the seniors to be by themselves so they can get intensive support. Okay? Akron University and Kent State tutors have really helped us to make that OGT only class for seniors possible. Some of their pre-service teachers come out and support us, as well as students who are, just in an undergrad of math. They're not really looking to go into the teaching profession. They may be trying to do something else, but they come out and they support. Student resource folders. These are folders that the principals make for the students, for them to go home and continue their work outside of the school day. The folders consist of links to websites, as well as test-taking strategies, as Yvonne spoke of. Reteach and recover days. That was something different we tried this year. The first week back from Christmas break, we worked with our math and English department to have some reteach and recover days in the areas of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, English 9, and English 10. Two-part to help with the end of the course exams, but also to help students who are still trying to pass the OGT for March. Practice tests and intervention during lunch and after school, that's really the most popular. A lot of our students, if you would go out, let's say Garfield, because the majority of their students are in the testing computer lab, going through interventions during lunch and after school. Take-home packets for parents to assist students in studying for the test. We also download those off the ODE website so that parents can administer a practice test at home for their students, so that they're working on timing. Time the students on taking the test so that they know what they have to do once they get to the test. Now, hopefully, when you guys see these numbers, you can see that we still have about 75 to 90% of our students, sometimes, some cases, 96% of the students that we have to focus on as well, because we can't spend all of our resources focusing on the students who have not passed the OGT, because remember, we're trying to be a #1 urban. We have our universal and target students, if you look at Yvonne's flow chart, who passed the OGT on their first try, okay, as a sophomore. Well, we have to now start getting those students ready for college, all right, and careers. So we have two things going on. We have some interventions going on, and we also have some enrichments going on, okay, because we have a complete senior class. Remember, we're trying to get all students to be ready for their next steps in life. Prepare all students for success. So the students who have overcome the barrier of the OGT, we move them on to getting ready for the ACT, getting ready for the AP exams. So some things that we do for our students who are ready to move beyond the OGT. This year at Firestone, it was our first year doing it, we piloted the PSAT for all 10th graders. Okay, so those students were deemed on track to pass the OGT. So now we want to get them to start focusing on the SAT, because we want those students by their junior year to feel like they can go for the SAT and score high and get some of those scholarships, not only with the ACT but with the SAT. ACT for all juniors still exists in our district. ZAPS training is what we use to try to prepare our students, specifically our juniors, for taking the ACT. We do that on a Saturday. We now have trained teachers to do ZAPS so that we can start moving it within the school day. Dual credit courses, of course, throughout our career ed department, as well as English throughout our district. Career courses for college credit, more industry credentials, College Goals Sunday and Scholarship Focus Day, so that our students are able to see, how they need to start writing prompts for scholarships, as well as filling out their FAFSA so that college becomes a reality. Parent and community meetings about College Credit Plus, we have those throughout the district. Parent and community meetings about the new graduation requirements, and their partnerships with area colleges and universities, such as Stark State, Lorraine Community College, University of Akron, Kent State, and the list goes on. College Now partnership, Great Lakes College Ready grant. You guys will hear more about that later. That's a grant that we just received for our district. Actually, 2 grants from Great Lakes. Career and College Ready Day. We continue to have that, and it's continued to be a success. Something that's going to be new for next year is the PSAT for all 8th graders. okay? So that we can get an early start on focusing on students to get ready for those college entrance exams, okay? Just real quick, Yvonne and I will tag team this. There's new graduation requirements, and we just summarized this. I mean, I know Tim Miller came to a session that we did throughout the high schools. This PowerPoint we went to, every high school, tried to hold a meeting to inform the parents. But we still have the same course requirements for graduation, which is 4 English, 4 math, algebra 2 or higher, 3 science, 3 social studies, health, PE, and 6 electives, which comes to 21 credits to graduate from Akron Public Schools. Along with that, for our current freshmen and beyond, so the class of 2018 and beyond, our current freshmen, students must earn a total of 18 points on 7 end of the course assessments. All right, English 9 and 10 are the focus areas for English, algebra and geometry for math, physical science, and that will change. We already making changes. That's going to change to biology, okay? But physical science is still in play, and biology will come along. American history and government are the history courses. The way this breakdown works is there's 4-point minimum across ELA. And then Yvonne will explain to you guys what that means, and she'll give you the formula that she gave to the parents, and some of them will kind of wowed by that, and you will be as well. 4-point minimum across math, 6-point minimum across science and social studies, and then students can score 1 or 5 points per test. So meaning the lowest a student can score on the end of the course exam is 1 point. The highest is 5. Now remember, the goal is 18 points. So I'll have Yvonne go through that math because, as you can see, if you just focus on 2 points, you may not make it.
I think one of the benefits of, well, there are a couple of things with the end of course assessments. Number one is students are tested on that material immediately upon finishing that course, or actually while they are enrolled in that course. So I'm not waiting until the end of my sophomore year to take a test over algebra, and I haven't seen algebra for a year. I'm taking that algebra test immediately upon finishing algebra. And the same with geometry. English 9 and 10. So that allows the student to take that test while that content is still very fresh in their mind. The other thing that I think is a benefit of the end of course assessments is if I am not strong in one area, I'm able to compensate for it in another area. So let's say I'm not a math person. As long as I get 2 points on each of my geometry and my algebra exams, then I've met that 4-point minimum. Even though under the old OGT, I would still be limited, have some limited knowledge, and I would not have been considered to have passed that test. With this, as long as I make up those tests in another area, if I make up those points in another area, I was a strong language arts student. I could have gotten 4s and 5s on my language art. So if I had gotten 2s on my math, my 4s and 5s on my language art would have compensated. So as long as you come up with 18 points, and as long as you hit the minimum, the 4, and the 6, then you are fine. Now, if I only hit the minimum math quiz, how many points do I have? 14. I heard somebody. 14. So just hitting the minimums in all areas will not get me there. I'm going to have to pick up a point or 2 on another test. But I have the possibility of those kids that we're talking about now on the OGT, that are those alternative pathway kids. I've been taking this test over and over and over and scoring 392, 397, 396. And I don't get to graduate. These kids will be covered under the new assessment.
Okay. And just to add to that, so that you guys know, the reason why we're still focusing so heavy on the ACT and the SAT, because if I am that student that scores that 14 points, I now can take the ACT. And if I do well in the area that I'm struggling with in the ACT, it can now replace my score, and I'm being college ready, okay? Or the SAT. Okay? Just ninth graders who complete Algebra 1. We had some ninth graders who took Algebra 1 last year in 8th grade. They were grandfathered in with 3 points. Now, the state is going to change that. What they're going to do is, and Howard, I don't know if they gave word yet on it, but they're going to have us look at the student's grade. And if the student scored an A, then they're going to give them 5 points. If they scored a B, they're going to give them 4 points, all right, within the subject area. But right now, until that becomes, in writing, all of the students will get 3 points. And the reason why, because parents were calling the state complaining, saying, I know my child could get a 5 if they took that test. You're only giving them 3 points. That's not fair, okay? Provisions for students who move into Ohio in later grades. Those provisions will be things such as the ACT or looking at the AP or IB, or they may be grandfathered out as well, okay? Questions?
Well, I was going to ask about the PSAT and the ACT, and you sort of mentioned that because a person could score well on those, and that will cover everything, and they can be eligible to graduate.
True, but they have to still take all 7 assessments first, right. And then
okay. So we're making sure, even though most students usually take, in this area, ACT, but we still going to make sure they take that PSAT and SAT to cover that.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
We were heavily focused on the ACT. Now we're starting to, make sure that we're doing that.
Okay.
And just one correction, the PSAT won't cover it, just the
That's just the practice,
or the
right? That's just your practice, right? I meant to say just the SAT would cover that. Okay, so we've got plenty of options for our children as long as the state stays consistent. Because if they change it, keep changing it, it doesn't help us. Somewhere they've got to say, this is it. Let's use this as a way to evaluate our students at the end, and not, they got ready, they got used to OGT. Now this year-end exam, we got our children ready for that, and then the state comes and says, hey, we want something different.
Which could happen.
But it doesn't help our students, it doesn't help our teachers, because we're getting them prepared, and actually we're giving them hope. Hey, if I can, I'm strong in English. I'm strong in social studies and history, biology. I'm going to change that to biology, and I can do well in those. I'm not good at math. But if I can get a 2 and do well in these other areas in the strength, then I can make it.
And again, that's why our stretch is to the ACT and the SAT, because as long as we're getting our students ready for even if you don't want to go to college, as long as we're getting you ready for an entrance exam to a career in college, anything that the state puts out, you should be okay on taking, okay? Because they're up here. The ACT and SAT are up here. The state test probably falls right underneath. Okay, and then the OGT probably falls, the new state test probably falls underneath, and then the OGT is below that. So we're trying to move our students up to the ACT and SAT focus so that they're able to overcome anything the state put before. Right.
I'm just wondering, in the 21st century, can we start grandmothering them in? just
I don't control the language. I mean,
I have a question.
Grandperson.
Can we jump back into this year just for a second? Could you do us a favor and could you send us or resend us what all the alternative pathways are so that we can have those at our fingertips?
For this year, there's only for the OGT?
Yes, for the OGT.
The requirements for the OGT?
Yes. Can you send that to us? And also, can you tell me the requirements that you went through and all these fantastic strategies that allow them to work their way through? Are those mandatory or are they voluntary at this point? If you think, well, I'm just going to pass this test. I didn't pass my sophomore year. I'll pass my junior year. And so you try. Are they required to go to OGT interventions?
Yeah, they're mandatory on their schedule. They have to go.
They have to go.
Yep. No question.
A couple things, I'm sorry. First of all, 4 or 5 years ago, the board asked for a real serious focus on the graduation problem, and pardon me, I'm pleased to see that it's evolved from what it was in the first year or two, which was a strong program. but it's involved even beyond that. So first of all, thank you for that. Second of all, with the new interventions, or I'm sorry, with the new program requirements with the freshmen now and children younger than them, it seems like the structure that you have built over the past 3, 4, 5 years is going to basically fall to the wayside and become unimportant anymore, unusable. So I guess what I'm getting at is, you used to take a test in the spring, you got your results in May, in the fall you came back and you started taking the intervention courses you just talked about, Mr. Black. But now you're going to be taking an exam right at the end of the class. So what happens when a child has difficulty with that exam? What is the intervention path for them going to look like now going forward?
Well, first, the things we have in place now will stay in place for 2 more years.
Right, because
our sophomores they have until their senior year to pass the OGT.
Right.
And at the same time, we're creating a new intervention outlook where we're trying to build, we're trying to make sure that it's built into the class. So when Twan and her team went out to look for the new, adoption for curriculum, like collections, they wanted to make sure that they had the necessary built-in interventions to help support the students, not only for the coursework, but it will also support them for the end of the course exams. Okay, same with math. But with that said, we're also looking at building in new courses, okay, for our students, who may have struggled on the end of the course exam. So that's sort of like the reteach that we tried to experience this year. That's what we're looking at doing. And I don't know, Mr. James is over there. We're also talking about like summer school in real time. Okay, so, and this isn't approved or anything. Right. It's just a conversation. Okay, so, after we finish a semester, what does it look like to get the students what they need right now? Okay, reteach them the things that they lost. Because if our teachers are saying that they failed the subject per semester, well, we already know what the outcome could be on the end of the course exam. So what are we going to do in real time to get those students that curriculum back that's lost? So those are things that we're working on. Summer school in real time, things of that nature.
Thank you very much.
This might be a major question. Are the kids in our digital pilot included in these numbers?
Yes, because they're attached to the school.
They are attached to an actual school. Okay, thank you.
So when we look at a 9th grade cohort going through right now, is there any, I don't know what our target is. Say for 5 years, I don't know if we ever set one for graduation rate. 93%. So if I were to pull out those numbers that you kind of identified as the challenge today, we got them from somewhere out of state, out of the country, and how are we doing with that? How are we doing with the graduation rate?
The numbers that you see, they're in a year lag, but the numbers that you see in a year lag in our reports, some schools are there and some schools are 5% off. Some schools are 10% off from the 93%. So Firestone High School, they may be at 92% graduation rate. East, 78%. So from getting from 78% to a 93, they're 15% off. So we have to really work hard on that, because the other thing that we have to do is, and I don't want to go into the formula, but if a student comes into East High School as a freshman, okay, right now they're going to be calculated into East graduation rate. They may leave East, so the same problem we have with receiving students, that we didn't start with, our students are also going to other school districts, okay? So if a student goes to another school district, all right, and let's say they go to Barberton, and they don't graduate, well, that comes back to East High School as a non-graduate, right? Because they started with East in the freshman year. Now they're going to be tracked to see if they graduate, even though they left East High School, right? So that kind of comes back to us. We still claim that because it's in that freshman data of total number of students that started with that class at that high school. So that stays the same.
Howard, did you want to?
For a quick reference, if you took the spring 14 and subtracted it from 100%, there would be a quick reference for where the schools are at. If you want a more accurate one, I can get that. But it's-
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
You know, if you take the OGT 2014 and subtract that from 100%, that's about where the high schools are at right this second. Last year. Does that make sense? In other words, the Bookto, let's look at North where there's 16% off there at the bottom. That means the graduation rate was 84%, something like that.
Yeah, my question was, if you took out some of the students that Mr. Black identified earlier as folks we inherited, so to speak, where would those numbers be?
We could work on that.
But I'm thinking it'll be a wash because we also lost students as we received. And they still count for us as well.
So because the one that went to Barberton didn't graduate, still. Well, they could actually be going that category with the other folks. Yeah. If you did that, put them in the category with the folks who you inherited.
So you just want to see who stayed all 4 years?
Yeah, I just like to see, you know, I mean, I think that speaks volumes about the work that's being done, not the reconnaissance work that you get, you know, I'm talking about the work.
And we'll take out also the exit dates because we have some students that they may go to Kansas City for a year, but they come back to work next year for us. So consistently stay with us for 4 years. That's what you're looking for?
Just purity on this for the purposes of trying to see that number. Because if 93 becomes a real moving target, if we're not really looking at, to me, I don't know, I'm not, anyway, in the purest sense of the graduation rate. Because I mean, somebody leaves here in the 9th grade and go to, you know, Cleveland Heights, I don't know what all kinds of...
Total number stays with us.
But what happens to the kid who left us in 9th grade and never went anywhere? I mean, the dropout.
Right, I mean, so I need that, get that number out, because that's now a moving target constantly. If you don't, we'll never get 9th grade.
Final thing is there's resources in your folder. See what we do in OGT summer school, and then the new graduation requirements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next order of business is the approval of our meeting minutes from April 27, 2015.
So moved. Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Catch that, sorry, Mr. I'm moving fast. Thank you. I heard Tim was second.
No, not Jason.
Oh, Jason, sorry.
Way to go.
I'm up to speed.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about those minutes? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes.
Mr. Haas.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes.
Reverend Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
All right, superintendent's recommendations.
Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 36 personnel recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Any questions or comments about personnel? Wanted to mention that we will sorely miss Mrs. Gordon at Bookto High School, and we wish her well. Roll call, please.
Mr. Haas.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes. Oh, abstain from number 32, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Sims.
Yes, abstaining from 33 and 34.
Reverend Walker.
Yes, abstaining from 35 and 36.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Bravo.
Yes.
Next, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 2 motions and 11 resolutions on the consent agenda. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second. Properly seconded. Questions? Oh, yes.
One quick question, just on with the Bridges program moving
out of Hotchkiss. I just, out of curiosity, when we get space open in a school because of starting to consolidate everything over at Barrett, is that space used for something else at Hotchkiss, or?
No, Hotchkiss is really starting to deteriorate. Last year we had to do some external work as part of a parapet wall, I think, fell over, and it's just seen better days. So Barrett is a newer building and there is room there, and so decided to move the program. They'll take the second floor at Barrett, so they're isolated from the first floor.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
And finally, Madam President, I have before me for your consideration 10 business affairs recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any questions about business affairs?
Number 8, were we always responsible for the landscaping or the flower beds?
Yes, at our CLCs.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if people volunteered to do some of those things, or...
We do have some of that during like United Way's Day of Caring, which is later in June, I believe.
And then items 1 and 2, I don't know why I thought violins and violas were more expensive than flutes and clarinets and saxophones, but I guess that depends on how much of each of those items you can get. Okay. All right.
Yes, Tim.
Question on number 10, the new tech program at Bookville. It's been there for a little while. I'm just curious how that's going. There have been so many different programs in and out of Bookville. I'm assuming that's going well, and that's why we're, continuing to move forward.
Yeah, we're going to ask
Yeah, we've had huge success with the program. We're fully implemented at the high school with our one-to-one environment, our collaborative classes. It really is our second STEM high school. That's how everybody should view it, even though it doesn't have STEM in the title. That is what New Tech is it's a STEM school. We've seen increased student achievement, increased graduation rates. So it's been very successful. Now what you're approving tonight is the middle school now doing the same training and conversion to the middle grades.
No news is good news in most circumstances, but I hadn't. I'm curious.
Yeah, it actually, the highlight is when the U.S. Department of Education pulls out of all the schools across the country that have received school improvement funds, Bookville was chosen to highlight in the U.S. Department of Education report on positive use of school improvement funds. Now that's when you know you're doing things right.
Is it helping the graduation rate? I mean, we just had that discussion. It is.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the
fourth year of that program?
Well, there was a pre-planning year and then 3 years of all of the training and the shift in the instruction and the one-to-one digital environment.
Is the senior class New Tech this year? Or is this the last year?
This senior year has experienced New Tech because we did both the junior and senior year together.
So the funds that set STEM programs get from Patel, does some of that money flow to Booker?
No, it's not with Battelle listed as a STEM school. We could apply and go through that route. We haven't needed to because we've received the U.S. Department of Ed school improvement money, which
There's
was
just a name attached to it. That means value. And
yes.
Booker also gets Patel dollars too. So that kind of,
our executive committee can certainly take a look at that. The funds are a lot smaller than they used to be, but the name, I agree with you, carries a lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
I have nothing to report. I'll defer my time
Yeah, go ahead and start getting set up. I don't have a lot tonight. I did want to again mention the mayor as he's getting ready to retire, and just say that, you know, regardless of what political feelings people may have and what relationship you may have with the mayor, you cannot argue what he's done for the city, and you certainly can't argue that he has been a good partner for the school district. And you know, you don't have to look any farther than the project with the schools to see the vision that the superintendent and the superintendent before him and the mayor's office have had in building that partnership with our community and with our cities. And it's been looked at by other people because of that foresight. So I really appreciate all that he's done for that. And we hope that we can count on him in the future as well. I did want to mention briefly that it is prom and graduation season. So for those who are out there, and especially when you're out driving and there's kids out, please be careful. Be nice to them as they're in restaurants, some of them for the first time, trying to take their dates, because that can be very nerve-wracking. There are a lot of fantastic art things going on, and since Mrs. Sims called me out on keeping you all appraised of those situations, I'm going to mention a few. We did have our high schoolers, several of them, and middle schoolers in the past 2 weeks compete either on their own or with groups at the Ohio Music Educators Association state level. So congratulations to them. I know the superintendent got to go watch the Kids That Rock, and we had several groups from Akron Public Schools that were there at the library this past weekend. And there's lots coming up yet this weekend. I know the Firestone Wind Ensemble is going to be at the Akron Art Museum, and of course Miller South is going to be at the Civic for the big show. So there's plenty to come see. So if you want to, I don't know if we're going to have heat to beat after today, but if you want to beat the heat, you can do that easily. See some really great presentations from Akron Public School students. And that is all I'm going to say, because Mr. Pendleton has warned us in advance that he has much to share. So
I've been warning you for a couple board meetings now that this is coming. I'll be sensitive of everyone's time and do my best to keep it efficient with your time. Yep, you have a color packet at your table. I've emailed this to senior staff. We won't be obviously going through every page here, just a few of the slides. Generally, treasurers don't lead off with the 5-year forecast, but I wanted to put this up on the board because this is the last time you're going to see it for the rest of the presentation. We're going to focus on what drives the forecast, what makes the assumptions important, and so that you can get the impact of the bottom line, because that's what will be of the talk and chatter, is the difference between the October forecast of last year versus now, and the impact of the state budget, and that cash balance line of June 30th. I'll let you absorb that for a little bit before I take it away. All right, there's a few things that I want to mention to the board before we get started. This is our key management tool. It should not be the treasurer's tool. We should adopt this as a living, breathing document internally and for the board. This is updated daily, let alone monthly. We can model the impacts of everything from negotiations to a JED payment or a TIF or those kind of impacts in real live time order. Out more than 2 years, let's focus on the trends and less on the bottom line. Okay, so let's make that pledge to each other. There is a legal component here, though, and that's the Ohio Revised Code 5705.412. It's called the 412 certificate, or 412. This is how we certify contracts. This is how we certify negotiation contracts. So as we go into what's driving the assumptions on the personnel, We're going to talk about a few things different that we're going to do in terms of wages and benefit assumptions and how do we certify contracts. A couple housekeeping items. Tomorrow, we'll follow up with senior staff on a few key components of these slides. Next Monday, we have the Finance Committee for anybody that wants to get a deeper dive on the forecast. For the Finance Committee chair and co-chair to dig in a little bit more. The 21st, we will be presenting to the bargaining group heads. I've always operated that way, one being transparent, and two, allowing our staff, in a sense, to ask as many questions as they want relative to the finances and what driving. This is a public document. This is Akron's document, not the treasurer's. That being said, we'll bring it to the board for adoption on the 26th, and then we will update. Most likely we will have an update since we've been through House Bill 64 and this substitute House Bill 64. And you'll see my assumptions are a bit more conservative than the governor's proposal, so we may have some changes. I've handed out also in your packet tonight a helpful hint. This is from ODE, but I added the quote down at the bottom, one of my peers. The best time to avoid a deficit is 5 years ago. All right, one of my goals for tonight is to have a basic understanding of school finance and where we're at. And obviously from the document up top, this is a next to impossible task. So my peers long before me came up with this chart. Bob Stabill, Dick Maxwell, and folks that went through the constitutional charges against school funding. This is school finance in a graph. This represents 614 districts. Actually, it's going to be 613 because 2 of them are consolidating in northeastern Ohio right now. This is every district. This is the cyclical nature of school finance, sometimes a vicious one. This is Akron. This is Summit County. So if there's one thing that we take away from here is where are we on this graph? What point are we in this graph? This represents us perfectly right now as you look at a cash carryover in the $50 million range. And we don't, it really doesn't resonate as to the size and scope of what $50 million is. So let's start here and then we'll dig in just a little bit more. We're in this time frame right here. This represents 5 years. It could represent 8. It affects Hudson schools differently, who may be on a 3-year levy schedule on average than Akron. Hopefully we're a much longer schedule than that. But right now we're in this period right here. This is where our revenue is outpacing our expenses. Our revenue is set on levies, so we're fixed millage. This is what we collect. Okay, up a little bit, down a little bit, depending on property values and appeals and those kind of things. But in a sense, this is our revenue. Every district's chart, whether the expenses grow to this extent or a little slower or a little bit more steep, there will be a time in the future, and has prior to 2012 in this district, where your expenses outpace your revenue. So what do? You have 2 inputs to do. You either lower expenses or you raise revenue, or a combination of both. And almost every district does this. And a lot of the times, because the communities, in a sense, from the state of Ohio are pinned against their communities and how we raise revenue. It's not an easy task. We do a combination of both, and that's the vicious cycle. So what we do is we identify that point in time, which you see right here. That represents when our revenue, our expenses are outpacing our revenue. A very important point on the graph. So you either reduce expenses or you raise revenue. You do a combination of both. You pass a levy. So there's our new baseline for revenue, and we go through the whole thing all over again. Every district in the state of Ohio does this. So we're here, all right? We've passed a levy in 2012. You can see shortly after 12, We were still deficit spending, and now we're starting to pay more than expenses. So this chart, if there's one thing that we take away today, just realize where we're at in this path. This is the important.
What's the year where the 60?
That's fiscal 19. And if you want to reference this, since it's a lot to take up on the board, it's the last page of your handout. All right.
Just in the interest of people who are not as graduate. So, this needs to infuse more cash at this level. We're not anticipating a levy, that's just hypothetically speaking.
Correct.
Right, just for the record.
Just for the record, we don't have a levy on the horizon. I was asked to summarize what fiscal position Akron Public Schools is in, and I'll reference the guy who said weather in a word: stable. This is definitely a positive trend. As you can see, that green line is probably the most important line. It represents that graph. We are not deficit spending. We're not eroding our cash balance. But the next component of what I'd like to talk to you about is, where is our cash balance? How healthy is it? And at what point in time, and how do we keep that stretched out as long as possible? All right, we're going to go to a few slides here. This is a few pages in on your executive summary. Just wanted to frame for you what the cash position looks like. A standard best practice in this industry is about 10%, about 33 million. And this isn't an easy conversation, and one that I've talked to you since October of last year in Finance Committee has gone through the practice of what is best practice for us. What does that mean if we adopt a cash reserve policy? So I put some indicators here of what we currently spend. What's 10% of our budget? What is our highest months of expenses? And 1 month of local tax collection. On average, we should try to have at least 90 days cash on hand for those times in January and July when our cash flow is the least. If we get tax advances from the county in 2 large chunks, and that puts us sometimes in cash flow constraints. So I think just from the gravity of seeing that bar chart, let's start to put into perspective that a $50 million cash carryover is it's not excessive. It represents what's appropriate in our practices. So we try to extend that for as long as we possibly can without sacrificing programs. You're going to see a few charts about enrollment today. So our enrollment in 2015 is about 300 students less there than 2014. It's 20,754. Those are students in seats. Our funded students is about 27,000. And you can see to the right there, at present the district spends about $50 million on tuition paid to students leaving the district. The total per pupil expenditures is a metric that the state of Ohio and our peers all evaluate each other on. So we're going to start to dive into, in the Finance Committee, what are our peers doing? How do we stack up for And this is a much more complicated graph than the one we drew, but it's representative of the graph. So you can see that Akron, because of the position we are in our cash position, because of where we have come from 2012, where we addressed that graph by cuts and raising revenue, we've reinstated programs. Reinstated programs comes at the expense of more total expense per pupil. That's represented there in where the gray bar in 2014. That's a calendar. We're trying to get the most recent data possible. It's something to watch. It's just something that within our peer group gives us benchmarks and best practice to not exceed. We spend more money per pupil than all of our peers. We ought to answer that question. Why is that? Is it because our infrastructure is too large? Is it because our student enrollment has declined and our staffing hasn't adapted to that? Which is the next chart that I'd like to show you. That's on page 16 in your handout. This shows previous 6 years in history and forecasting. It shows our student ADM in terms of students in seats, not funded. It shows that decline. Apply a little average there, a little over 2%. And it shows our staffing. You can see the effect of the 2012. Again, I reference back the chart that we drew. This is all drawing back, and we're going to finish with that chart to the right about where we're at in this position. You can see the 11% decline in staff as a result of those cuts. And you can see the reinstatement of those staff. Again, I pose the question, one that the superintendent and I often have, and finance committee often has, as I'm sure every district does. Are we right-sized? Are we efficient? In each and every one of those buildings that gets renovated or evaluated is a part of this discussion. But I know very early on, even from my interviews, the board asked a lot of questions about enrollment and staffing and where are our students going and what choices do they have. So we're tracking the student side and the staffing side just to about every metric that we can look at. All right, we're going to jump back up to page 8. Stop me, please, if you have questions. Or we'll come back around. Instead of seeing that complicated first graph or the first 5-year forecast tab, this is your revenue. A little bit better to see there. The sources of revenue from where we have been in from 2010 to where we expect to be in 2019. Again, you can go through the graph in your handout, or we can in more detail next Monday. Total operating revenue for the next 5-year trend is about 2.87% compared to the previous 5-year trend of 1.16. So in summary here, we're seeing better property values. We went through 9 years of deflation, maybe a few more years than that. We're starting to see the data suggest that improved property values. And the governor's proposed and amended House Bill 64 is positive for us. And you see that on average, we have about 5.4%.
Personal property pie there, that is what were held harmless when they created the cat tax, correct?
It's still
The government
20
did take out, the House put back in.
Correct. On page 10, and at the top of your handout, I'm not going to switch the slides. That question and this question came from the board in the last presentation. You'll notice that we've added the percent of revenue to the overall financial story. So public utility is 2.5% where our reimbursement comes in, but it does represent over $5 million. All right, let's shift to expenses on page 15. Again, similar graph to the revenue, where we've come from in 2010 to where we expect to be in 2019. There are a few takeaway here on assumptions. If you remember in the October forecast, I was carrying forward the previous assumptions that were set before I came on board in September. Knowing where we're at on this graph that we've drawn, knowing that we will be entering negotiations in January, and knowing that we're not in fiscal crisis like we were in 2012, one of the important assumptions here is that I put in a 1.75% base increase in wages. Previously, the way the forecast had been constructed is that we would put in a zero there, and that's subject to negotiations. This is still subject to negotiations. What would happen is you would come back after negotiations, and you'd refile an amendment to the forecast, and there'd be massive moves in the bottom line. I think this is a more fair and reasonable way to show a placeholder for negotiations. It's still contingent on benefits. There's been a lot of work done on benefits. There still is a lot of work yet to do. But it's probably a more fair and reasonable way to state our budget. That's something that maybe you want to talk about and question in the Finance Committee. The purchase service and supplies line item up here, you can see they're flat 5% and flat 3%. That's a new approach to our budget as well. We contacted at least the Ohio 8 and more of our peers on the ODE peer list to find out what they spend in those areas. What is best practice? How much should we dedicate? We're not saying this is what we're going to spend, but this is a placeholder to start that conversation. Something definitely we should bring up in the Finance Committee. Before we would look at bus purchases every other year. We would look at computers in an every other year cycle, textbook adoption in an every other year cycle. And what it does is it commits us in the budget from what we pass and show publicly and what you see. And if you don't meet that fiscal year, you've just circumvented or blown next year's budget. So for example, I think this year is a $10 or $11 million budget. Next year, we had a few $1 million less than that, and then 2 years out, we were back to the $11 million. I can tell you already, and one of the board members asked that question through the monthly financial report, said, it doesn't look like you're going to get to your expenses this year. It's not that we didn't do the computer purchase or the adoption, just the purchase didn't fall within this fiscal year. So this is a better way to budget for supplies and material and capital. So again, this is a little bit different of a process. The other supplement, and I'll leave it with the supplement before we go back to the chart and allow you to digest a little bit. Every month I've been trying to include the board on the pluses and minuses of where we're at in state funding. The top left graph in the middle part of ending cash balance is where we're at with this forecast. The blue represents what was in law before. The reddish bronze color there in the middle represents the governor's proposed budget. And the gray represents amended House Bill 64. So I think I have
And is that in the handout? Which page?
It is not in the handout. So we are not forecasting the top end range from the governor. I think that would be.
This is what's on page 23, right?
Is it in the back?
Yeah, it's page 23.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I've got one for you. So if someone asked, did you implement a full 7% of the governor's proposed budget? The answer is no. We are including a 5%, which is just a little bit less than the amended House Bill 64. And it corresponds down in the bottom right to what our cash position looks like. So when you look at that cash position and you compare it to the forecast, we're being conservative, but I did not put zeros and 1% in there. I think that would be understating what truly will happen here as of June. All right, I know that's a tremendous amount to take in. I understand that the numbers are hard to glean trends from, but the chart that we drew to the right, I hope that you were able to gain a sense of where we're at in this cycle. All right, any questions?
And a deeper dive, a little bit deeper dive next week.
What cash balance you're saying we need to have at least $50 million would be reasonable? And what you projected out to 2007 being conservative with the House bills, the governor's proposal would pretty much keep us there where we are right now.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
Next is committee reports. As you're getting yourself back together. They get rained out. It's raining. Okay. All right. First committee reports. Anything? Oh, we do have legal and policy committee has. Okay. All right.
Can I go?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For the third and final reading and a motion for approval, we have policy 5330, revised use of medication. Policy 7.02, which is new staff use of personal communication devices. Policy 7540.03, revised student education technology acceptable use and safety. And policy 7540.04, revised staff education technology acceptable use and safety. And I've asked for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions about those policies? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Sims? Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Anything from finance? Other than what we just had? Okay.
Pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
Everything Ryan said.
Ditto. All right.
Actually, I will make one statement, just for point of reminder for everybody. The Finance Committee basically will look at that as looking at this for the second time and bring it for the third time to the board at the end of the month.
What, the 5-year?
Yeah, the 5-year forecast will come to us for approval at the end of this month.
Second reading will be at your meeting.
Right.
So second reading is.
Second review, there is no reading.
Actually, there's no reading.
Second review.
If you want to dig deeper. Go. All right, anything from instructional policy? All right. Any unfinished business? I don't think we do. And we do have some new business tonight. Mr. James had something to...
We received a request to name the wrestling room at Kenmore in honor of Coach Lee Thompson, and they would like to call it the Lee Thompson Wrestling Room.
Anyone have any...
This is correct. Now, did he went to Kenmore?
In the letter, he was the head wrestling coach at Kenmore for 22 years, and he worked as an assistant coach for an additional 6 years before that. During his tenure, they coached one State of Ohio champion, regional and series champions, and the APS team wrestling championship for 10 consecutive years.
I was just going to say kudos. I thought he was an APS student too, that he went to Kenmore. Is that correct?
That one I don't.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's even nicer.
Yes.
He can have the building. No, just kidding.
I have one question on it, though. I'm assuming it's more than just one person asking for this. I mean, the letter's signed by only one person.
Right.
Is it? I'm assuming there's somebody. Okay.
I think just representing the community.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we would entertain a motion.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Already made that second.
Not the building though, but.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
We have no business for executive session this evening.
I did have a question on this though.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you do want to read on?
Yeah, it'll just be really brief, I promise you.
All right. We do have an so I need a motion pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to discuss the employment of a school official of the school district, person in the school district. So I need a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yeah.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Sims?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.